This is photogrammetry drone footage of the archaeological site Cueva del Indio on Puerto Rico's northern coast. The reserve is known for its petroglyphs, some more than 1,000 years old. They sit only feet from the ocean. When most people think about marine conservation, they think about coral reefs, fisheries, or endangered species. Standing at Cueva del Indio, I found myself thinking about something else. How do we protect culture that is inseparable from the coast itself? What happens when culture becomes part of what conservation is trying to protect? Because in places like this and all around the world, culture is part of the ecosystem. Those questions eventually led me to a newly designated marine reserve nearby and became the foundation of my capstone project. My project focused on La Reserva Natural Jardines Submarinos de Vega Baja y Manatí. The reserve was formally designated in 2024 after more than 16 years of community advocacy. It protects important marine and coastal ecosystems, including coral reefs, seagrass beds, and habitat for a wide range of endangered marine species. One example of marine life there is elkhorn coral. When most people think about a marine reserve, they think about resources like this. Elkhorn coral acts as a natural breakwater, helping protect the coastline from wave energy while also creating habitat for countless marine organisms. It's one of the reasons this ecosystem is so valuable, and it's exactly the kind of resource that marine conservation is designed to protect. Protecting it requires more than drawing a boundary around a reserve. It requires a plan. A typical process for a protected area or natural reserve first begins with official recognition of its existence. Then, a management plan is developed, and finally, conservation outcomes like healthier coral reefs, protected cultural sites, and community stewardship are achieved. A management plan is like a roadmap that guides how a reserve is managed, what resources are prioritized, what actions are taken, and who helps make decisions. The management plan for Jardines Submarinos is currently in draft form. It will include strategies for protecting resources like elkhorn coral. My project asked, what would it look like to bring that same level of intentional planning to cultural heritage, not as an afterthought or a separate issue, but as part of a broader effort to understand, protect, and steward this place? That became the focus of my project. But before I could answer that question, I first had to understand what culture and cultural heritage actually mean in the context of this reserve. When people hear the term cultural heritage, they might think of language, traditions, maybe artifacts. What I found in Puerto Rico was much broader than that. So, what is cultural heritage? It exists in archaeological sites, in traditional fishing knowledge, in oral histories and community, in place names, in relationships people have built with the coast across generations. These aren't relics. They're living connections between communities and place. They are part of how people understand, use, and steward the coast. In other words, culture is already part of the ecosystem. The challenge is making sure that policies and management reflect that reality. My project asked, what would it look like to integrate cultural heritage into the governance structure of the reserve? And how could that framework potentially inform future management efforts elsewhere in Puerto Rico? To answer that question, I combined 3 approaches. First, I analyzed cultural heritage and marine conservation laws relevant to Puerto Rico. Second, I studied marine protected areas around the world, somewhat close to Puerto Rico, that had already integrated cultural heritage into governance systems. And third, I worked directly with community partners and stakeholders in Puerto Rico. My goal was not simply to study the issue. It was to develop something useful for the reserve's management plan. I began by studying laws and policies that related to cultural heritage. In my research, I focused on 14 territorial laws, 7 federal laws, and 4 international frameworks. I found that many laws were robust in their language and wondered how they could be operationalized within the reserve's management plan. I then completed a comparative case study of 4 marine protected areas that had integrated cultural heritage into their governance frameworks. I looked at cultural heritage management in the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary, the Seaflower Biosphere Reserve Network in Colombia, the Guayhanas National Park in Canada, and the Chumash National Marine Sanctuary in California. Of the 4 case studies, the Chumash National Marine Sanctuary felt especially relevant. One of the sanctuary's defining features is that cultural heritage is not treated as a secondary consideration. It is embedded into its identity and management framework. It also incorporates mechanisms of co-stewardship and traditional ecological knowledge. These ideas directly influenced my approach to Jardines Submarinos, where the goal was not simply to acknowledge cultural heritage, but to build structures that support its protection alongside ecological resources. One of the most important parts of this project happened outside of reports, policies, and case studies. I had the opportunity to travel to Puerto Rico. During that trip, I was able to speak with staff from both the Institute of Puerto Rican Culture and the State Historic Preservation Office. Hearing perspectives from these organizations and agencies helped me to better understand both the opportunities and challenges of integrating cultural heritage into reserve governance. I also participated in archaeological fieldwork, including photogrammetry and 3D scanning at coastal sites to learn more about cultural heritage, like petroglyphs, how they're documented and how they can be shared with the community. This experience helped me to better understand what policy frameworks are designed to protect. I then presented my findings to Apuchi, a coalition dedicated to conserving both the natural and cultural in Puerto Rico, as well as other community members. I presented in Spanish, which was both intimidating and rewarding. This experience was the true culmination of my project. Apuchi welcomed me into their advocacy work and listened patiently as I stumbled through some Spanish in the presentation. They provided incredibly helpful feedback, and I was able to incorporate it into my recommendations for the management plan. What became clear was that many of the things I was describing as cultural heritage were not viewed by the community members as separate. Archaeological sites, fishing traditions, oral histories, and stewardship of the coastline were all a part of the same relationship with place. For them, culture and conservation were already connected. The challenge was figuring out how policy could better reflect what the communities already understood. My research and the community's feedback generated an impressive goal: the creation of a cultural heritage inventory database. There are many aspects of cultural heritage that are connected to Jardines Submarinos, but the information exists in multiple places. A database would help to organize valuable cultural heritage as inputs, including archaeological sites, cultural traditions, and indigenous knowledge, as well as information about maritime landscapes that have changed over time. The collection and organization of this information in a database would result in targeted protection, intentional stewardship, and effective management. Most importantly, this inventory database provides a way for community knowledge to be documented on the community's own terms. This is a copy of the draft management plan for Jardines Submarinos. The final product of my project was not simply a set of recommendations. I developed draft language for the plan, section by section, ready for integration. The recommendations focused on governance integration, cultural heritage protection mechanisms, and community-centered stewardship, moving beyond analysis and contributing something that could potentially be used in practice. I began this project thinking primarily about policy. I finished it thinking much more about relationships and trust. The most effective governance frameworks aren't simply imposed through policy. They are built through collaboration, and they work best when the communities most connected to a place have a meaningful role in shaping how it is protected. Jardines Submarinos was the focus of this project, but it's not the only place facing these questions. Across Puerto Rico, cultural heritage exists in caves, along coastlines, underwater, and within the knowledge held by coastal communities. Many places face the same challenge. How do we protect culture and nature together? My hope is that the framework developed for Jardines Submarinos can help inform future conversations of other protected areas across Puerto Rico. The challenge here is not simply protecting individual sites or resources. It is protecting relationships between people and place that give those resources meaning. Cultural heritage is not adjacent to the ecosystem. It is a part of it. And protecting one may ultimately require protecting the other. I want to thank my Capstone Advisory Committee, Dr. Isabel Rivera-Collazo, the chair of my committee, Ricardo Laureano, and Dr. Jennifer McKinnon for their mentorship throughout this process. Thank you to Apuche and the community members in Puerto Rico who welcomed me into this work and trusted me with it. I also want to give special thanks to Dr. Mariela Declet Perez and Javier Garcia Colon for their translation and endless support. Thank you to Lauren Clark, who has always believed in me and taught me so much this year. And thank you to the MAS MVC cohort, the program leadership, and my family members and friends who have made all of this possible. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So, wonderful presentation. Okay. There's a lot of coastal and marine cultural heritage I've noticed in the Bahamas, and I was wondering if you found anything that they were doing, the Bahamas National Trust, innovative in this space, or if not, if they might have something to learn from your example.
Yeah, I unfortunately can't speak to any examples there. I know that a lot of cultural heritage is being found constantly, and there are some complications that come with that, of course. But from what I studied, it seems like Puerto Rico's territorial laws are really robust. And so it's just a matter of implementing them.
Okay, I'm the master of dumb questions, but
no dumb question.
we talked about culture, but what does heritage mean? Is it chronological? Is it occupation? Is it fluid? Is it dynamic? Is it set? Yeah,
that's a great question. Because culture changes over time, I would personally say that cultural heritage is a very fluid and dynamic thing. In my interpretation and what I've researched, cultural heritage is everything from, these petroglyphs all the way to oral histories and stories that people tell. So I believe that it encompasses many things, but there's a lot of research with different opinions and ideas as well.
Okay, thank you. Very wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Because you have done some research in policy, you collect many policy and analyze. And I wondering which policy is very important to protect the heritage. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for asking. I'll be providing some more information in the future on my exact analysis, so I can share that with you. But yeah, there are a couple in Puerto Rico that I can think of that protect submerged cultural heritage, as well as terrestrial cultural heritage. And then the federal government has quite a few laws too that come in and protect. So I can send that information to you.